In today's show, I'm just answering a couple of your questions, and the big one seems to be, is the A15 any faster? I'm Mike Cave Dave, and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you. And if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring my bell. And just to let you know, in this video, it's going to be very little editing. I'm not going to put the questions up on the screen, and I'm basically not going to cut anything out, but I just wanted to answer a few questions. As I said to everyone, I was doing a big event last night, so I've literally just got home, had a quick shower, recording this, and I've got to go and pick up the kids. So, no editing today, sorry. Okay, first question for today comes from Josh, and it is, iCave Answers, do you know the exact date when the October event will be? We don't know the exact date. We don't even know if it will technically be, I say technically, we don't even know if it will actually be in October, but the date that I've got in mind is October the 12th. That makes the most sense. It's 4 weeks away. We think that the M1X MacBooks are ready to go. I think that we will probably have the M1X Mac Minis as well, fingers crossed. That's the date that I've got in mind. We will find out, I guess, a week before that if we get an event invite. So next up, from Just a Passerby, asks, iCave Answers, what is your opinion on Dylan Patel's article on SemiAnalysis site? Apple CPU gains grind to a halt, and the future looks dim as the impact from the CPU engineer exodus to Nuvia and Rivos starts to bleed in. And also from Bryan Data asking, iCave Answers, do you have you seen Gary Explains on YouTube arguing that the A15 might be no faster than the CPU in the A14? And this seems to be a little bit of a theme this year, because the Apple Watch Series 7, although it has an S7 processor system on package inside, apparently the processor itself is exactly the same as the one in the Series 6, so not really quite sure what's going on. However, Apple were talking about the new chips that are going into the A15, and yeah, they didn't really give us any indication on increases in performance. However, they are more efficient, so that's basically the balance point that Apple has chosen to go for this year. The A15 and the A14, like the A14 chip was fast enough. Like on single core performance, it was absolutely screaming, and that's why the M1 has done so well, because it uses those same cores. The A15 is built on the 5nm plus technology, so it's basically a slightly more advanced version of 5nm, but it is still 5nm. The performance gains that we were expecting would have been around about 15%. However, it doesn't look like that's happened. Instead, that's why we've got slightly bigger batteries in the iPhones, but also much longer battery life. So what Apple has done is they've tipped the balance towards efficiency this year, so that they're going to get those extra 2.5 hours on a regular iPhone, or 1.5 hours on the Mini. That doesn't all just come down to the cell being bigger, it comes down to the efficiency of those chips as well. And obviously, there is some more processing going on in there, because things like the cinematic mode will not run on an A14. But in terms of the kind of advances, I think this SemiAnalysis site is being a little bit kind of sensational with it. I don't think the issue is that these engineers have moved over to someone else, and so it's ground to a halt. I think this year was more of a consolidation year anyway, because they knew that the process wasn't going to change drastically, but there are 4nm and 3nm chip processors on the horizon, which will be much, much quicker. That's when we will see our big gains again in performance. For now, we've got the extra GPU core being baked into there. Now, I'm almost 100% certain, and we won't find this out probably until someone tears down these chips and does some microscope work and x-rays and things like that, but I'm pretty convinced that it's a 5-core GPU in all of the chips, and just with 1 core disabled in the iPhone 13 models, enabled for the iPad mini, and enabled for the Pro models. So that makes the most sense excuse me, that makes the most sense to me. So that's, I think, what's going on here. So I think it's chip binning the same as the M1s, with the 7 GPU cores enabled for the base MacBook Airs and for the base iMacs. That's what I think is going on here. So I wouldn't panic at this point. I mean, we don't know. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes. This also could be the knock-on of not having your engineers working in the same building, because everyone's been working remotely pretty much all the way through the pandemic. So trying to engineer SoCs is probably pretty tricky when you're not in the same room as the other people you're working with. That would be my biggest guess. Obviously, Nuvia is quite a threat. That's been bought out, I believe, by Qualcomm in order to make their own like desktop class ARM based systems. I believe that's what's going on. So yeah, there is a threat there, but it's not as crazy as I think everyone expects. So I'm just going to have a quick check over the Mac Rumors sites, because obviously I've not actually had a chance to look at these yet today, and just see if there is anything specific that we need to have a look at. As I say, very little editing today. One thing that I was going to say is that has everyone noticed that the new Mac Mini wallpaper actually says Mini if you turn it sideways? It looks really cool. It's a very, very cool design. But there's a top story here that the cellular Mac Mini doesn't include the millimeter wave 5G supports, unlike the iPad Pro, which is, to be honest, it's fine. 5G is very, very fast regardless. You're not going to notice the difference in 99% of cases. The iPhone SE has had the 256 gig option removed, so that is gone from the range now. I was having to think as well, because obviously we've still got the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 13 mini are both in the range, and I was surprised that they kept the iPhone 12 mini around, but I feel like it's because they've just literally got enough stock still to keep it, because it sold so poorly compared to the other models last year. They stopped the production on it very early. And I just think that that potentially it's not the case. You know, they're not making more. I think this is just what's left. Now, there is actually an article here on Mac Rumors that we have the Geekbench scores for the iPhone 13 for the Pro, and it's got a 55% graphics performance increase over last year's. 55% graphics performance increase is massive. So those graphics cores are definitely faster. Adding one more core is not going to make that difference. So the iPhone 13 Metal score is 1,608, and the iPhone 13 Pro is scoring way higher with iPhone 13 Pro is scoring 14,216 versus 9,123 on the iPhone 12 Pro, and the base iPhone is only scoring 10,608. So that's about 15% faster than last year's models. The Pro models are 55% faster based on these Metal scores, which is quite an impressive feat to be getting that kind of improvement. In terms of the CPU scores, the single core score is about 1724 and 1738 for two of the scores that have been uploaded today, and multi-core scores of 4587 and 4766. So I think we were at about 3900 on multi-core in the iPhone 12. So there is actually a decent bump in performance. They were also scoring around about 1600 in single core, so there is an improvement there as well. I feel like part of the difference there, so yeah, we're looking at 10% increase in single core performance and 18% in multi-core performance compared to the iPhone 12 lineup. So everyone that's talking about the lack of improvements, actually it turns out once we've got the numbers, it's not true. It is 10% faster in single core and 18% faster in multi-core score. So there we go. We have the scores, we know what we're talking about. Ignore all the stuff that I said at the beginning of this very video. But we are going to leave it there, guys, because I really have very little voice, as you can probably tell. I'm struggling a little bit. I will cut some of the dead space out of the middle of this video when I was just going, huh? It's all changed. So, let's get back together tomorrow. More of a normal day. Thank you so much for joining me for this weird little show.